I'm going to show you how to make an Italian bind-off in 2x2 rib. My rib begins with 2 purl stitches. When using this method, you should not start with 2 knit stitches, but you can start with 1 purl stitch or 1 knit stitch. 2 rows of double knit is worked before the bind-off. On the first row, we will swap the stitches around to place them as 1 purl, 1 knit instead. The purl stitches are slipped purlwise with the yarn in front. But since the next stitch is also a purl stitch, I'm skipping that and instead knitting the knit stitch while the purl stitch stays on the needle. And then I'm placing the yarn in front of the needle to slip the purl stitch. While dropping the knit stitch. The 2 stitches have now changed place on the needle. The next stitch is knitted. And the purl stitch is slipped. Again, I will swap the next 2 stitches around. So I knit the knit stitch first. And then slip the purl stitch and take the 2 stitches off the needle. I continue this way to the end of the row. The stitches are now placed as a 1x1 rib. Since I'm working back and forth, the second row of double knit is also worked by slipping all purl stitches and knitting all knit stitches. If the rib is worked in the round, the second row of double knit is worked this way. The purl stitches are purled and the knit stitches are slipped purlwise with the yarn behind the work. Now I can break the yarn and sew the Italian bind-off as usual in 1x1 rib. I start by sewing knitwise through the purl stitch and then purlwise through the knit stitch. Then I slip the purl stitch purlwise and sew through the next purl stitch knitwise. And then I slip the knit stitch knitwise and sew through the next knit stitch purlwise. Slip purlwise, sew knitwise. Slip knitwise, sew purlwise.